If you think about AI, first thing you got to do is you got to get your data in order. Once it's there, the first thing you get is you can just search it really quickly. But then when you get those building blocks in and you get that data in a good spot, you can start automating workflows.
Welcome to An Ounce of Prevention, the podcast. At our Reece & Associates, we believe that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Our daily commitment lies in informing our clients about legal risks without hindering their business objectives. As we like to say, we're in the business of building companies and helping executives sleep at night. So stay tuned. Maybe you'll learn something that'll help your business grow and thrive.
And now it's time for another update, but this one is focused on corporate law. Today, we're diving into a development that could mark a new chapter in where companies choose to incorporate. For decades, Delaware has been the default home for corporations, with its specialized courts, long-standing body of corporate case law, and predictable governance framework. But in 2025, Texas lawmakers passed a package of reforms designed to make the Lone Star State a real competitor. This update is about Senate Bill 29 and its companion measures, and why they matter for the future of corporate law in Texas. Texas has always been an attractive place to do business. It has low taxes, a growing economy, and a reputation for being business-friendly. But when it came to incorporation, companies have almost always looked east to Delaware. Delaware courts have developed deep expertise in handling complex corporate disputes, and its statutes are tailored to give management flexibility while still providing predictability for investors. Texas historically lacked that same reputation. With the passage of 4 new laws in 2025, that may be about to change. The centerpiece is Senate Bill 29, which reshapes corporate governance in several important ways. First, it codifies and expands the business judgment rule. That's the doctrine protecting directors and officers when they make decisions in good faith, even if the outcome isn't perfect. Delaware has relied on case law to define the boundaries of this rule, but Texas now has a statute spelling it out clearly. The law presumes directors and officers act in the best interest of the corporation. If shareholders want to challenge that presumption, they must plead fraud, intentional misconduct, ultra vires acts, or knowing violations of law with particularity. In other words, garden variety disagreements over business strategy will no longer be enough to get past the courthouse doors. Second, the new Texas law removes mandatory class voting for fundamental transactions. Historically, companies with multiple classes or a series of stocks had to get separate approval for mergers, asset sales, or other structural changes. That often slowed down deals and created leverage points for minority classes of investors. Under SB 29, class voting can be eliminated, so long as the corporation provides for approval rights in its certificate of formation. This flexibility is particularly appealing to venture-backed startups and growth companies, where capital structures are often complex and investors want negotiated rights rather than statutory defaults. Third, Texas has adopted provisions making it easier to increase or decrease the number of authorized shares. Previously, changes to authorized capital often triggered separate class votes, creating procedural hurdles. Now, companies can make those adjustments with a single shareholder vote, streamlining the process of raising new capital or granting equity compensation. Beyond SB 29, the reform package includes 3 other measures worth noting. Together, they allow corporations to issue shares partly paid, provide for the ratification of defective corporate acts, and expand indemnification protections for directors and officers. These bring Texas law closer to Delaware's well-tested framework, while in some areas going further to give management tools for flexibility and protection. So what does all of this mean in practice? For one, Texas is making a clear pitch to companies headquartered in the state. You no longer have to look to Delaware to find management-friendly governance rules. By codifying protections and cutting down on shareholder litigation risk, Texas offers a predictable environment that may reduce costs and delays. For startup, the flexibility around stockholder voting and authorized shares means less time spent on procedural mechanics and more time focused on growth. For established public companies, the heightened protection under the business judgment rule may give boards more confidence in pursuing bold strategies without the constant fear of litigation. Of course, Delaware isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Its Court of Chancery remains the gold standard in corporate adjudication, and many investors and institutions are comfortable with its case law. It's also worth watching whether other states follow Texas's lead. Corporate law has often evolved through competition among states, and Texas's reform may spark a new wave of statutory innovation. That's it for this case law update. Thanks for listening. Welcome to An Ounce of Prevention, where we believe an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I'm your host, Rachel Reece. Today, we're joined by a man who needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. The Galactic Viceroy of Collide AI, Chuck Yates. Welcome to the podcast, Chuck.
Well, thank you. There's a story behind that.
I got to hear it.
Okie doke. So when you're on LinkedIn, they make you put a title. And I'd just gotten fired. And so they're like, what is your title? And unemployed dude didn't really sound appealing.
Yeah.
And so just kind of being flippant, as I have a tendency to do, I put in Galactic Viceroy. I get so many comments of people going, congratulations on the new job. So I play along with a couple of them. I'm like, oh, well, thank you. I'm just chasing my dreams. And one guy's like, oh, I know you'll crush it. And I'm like, in fairness, he might actually think I'm crazy enough to think I'm going to space. So in fairness, maybe.
Got to know your audience.
But that's Galactic Viceroy. And it just rolled over into Collide.
Well, I like it. I mean, I'm known as the Chief Excitement Officer. That's what CEO stands for at our firm.
I like that.
Yeah.
I've got a friend where I am her executive of fun because left to her own devices, she would sit at home, do nothing. And I'm kind of like, let's go do this or let's go do that. So yeah.
I love it.
Cool. Okay.
Well, first of all, I want to say thanks for hosting us at your studio.
Welcome to it. It's a little awkward. I'm not asking questions, so okay.
You're in the hot seat this time. But as you know, on our podcast, we like to make it short and sweet and teach our audience about something. And when you and I were talking previously about what Collide is doing, I thought that it would be a great piece for our show. So tell me all about Collide AI and what we need to know.
So this is kind of cool. So I'll try to do the long story short. So Colin McClellan, CEO, he graduates from high school. He goes straight out into the oil field, right? He's also young enough and digitally native that he's sitting there, hey, where on the internet can I go to learn about energy technology? And there wasn't really a spot. So he always had this vision for a portal on the internet where folks could talk about energy problems, technology, that sort of stuff. And to that end, in 2018, he started a podcast called Oil and Gas Startups. And then January of 2020 decides to go full-time podcast. And
the dream.
Yep. Perfect timing. Boom, COVID. And so, I got booted in April of 2020, started the podcast in October of 2020. Colin started publishing it with Digital Wildcatters. And we wind up inadvertently building a media company. So we had this media company, but Colin had always had the vision for a portal. So we built an online portal. And we put out our first version, I think, in 21, and just no two ways about it. It was really, really shitty. And then about a year later, we spent some more money and took it from really, really shitty to just sort of shitty. But then about 2 years later, so maybe call it 23 to 24, what happened is AI had just gotten really good. About 2 years ago, really good. Could tell the difference between petroleum, meaning a barrel of oil, and petroleum in a company name. And so we started transcribing all our podcasts, had an incredibly good search engine built around that. You could go find any word we'd said in any podcast. And then we just kind of went mad scientist crazy, right? We were like, well, why limit ourselves to just our podcast? Let's go get everybody else's. So we scrape everybody else's podcast. We put it in the database. At one point, somebody goes, petroleum engineering textbooks. Great. We start throwing those in the database. Earnings calls from all the energy companies. We start throwing there. We start scraping just everything. We're finding obscure energy technology videos that 30 people had seen out on the internet. We're scraping that. We found...
Feel free to scrape our podcast.
Perfect.
Not a problem.
At one point, I'm going to get this wrong, but I think we found Oxy's field rules and procedures from 1968 or, something. We're just dumping everything in this database because AI's gotten so good, it's searchable. And we, in effect, had built, call it ChatGPT for energy. And we released that as part of the portal, and we actually spent some money on it. So it became pretty good. So Collide.io is this public-facing portal. Think Reddit functionality on a forum, so you can go in there and talk about energy stuff. We've got 10,000 people now using it.
Yeah.
The discussion on there's really good. We've got the video search engine of all our podcasts. And we previously had Collide AI, where you could go in and search and ask questions. And what was really interesting is we were demoing this for the assistant CTO of a large oilfield service company. And she went, I want that functionality, but on my data. And a light kind of went out that we had built enterprise AI software. And so now that's what we're doing to actually make money. We're a software company. So what we've done is we raised venture capital.
Mm-hmm.
Kudos to Mercury Group here in Houston that led the round. Got a lot of who's who of the energy business as investors. We did a VC round. We've hired an amazing CTO. We've hired, I think, 5 or 6 developers since then to bolster the team. And we hired an AI engineer out of AWS, joined us a couple of weeks ago. And so we're a legitimate software company these days. And I think we're up to 10 applications in with various clients and hope to be at 20 by the end of the year. So more than you asked for, but that's kind of our story.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. But you did say at the beginning that this was inadvertent. And I disagree. I think there's an evil genius. You said mad scientist, but it's Colin. It's Canisius. Maybe it's you. But someone's got a plan.
About 2 years ago, he went down this rabbit hole on AI because he saw how good it was getting, and he learned all about RAG technology. So actually, Collide is RAG technology. And do you know what RAG is?
I do now, but only because I listen to your podcast. So maybe we should tell the folks.
There we go. Just in case mom's listening.
Yeah.
So RAG is Retrieval-Augmented Generation. And the way to think about RAG infrastructure is it uses one of the foundational models as the brain. So ChatGPT, Llama, Grok, Claude. But at the same time, the RAG architecture provides context. And so in its simplest form, Collide, our software is, hey, I'm an oil and gas company, and I'm going to go retrieve data out of only these databases, and I want you to answer the question with just that. And so if you think about what that does for you, it gives you a more precise answer. If you search the whole World Wide Web for flush recovery, it'd probably come back talking about a toilet, right? instead of production you get after you turn a well on after it's been shut in. But so you get a more precise answer, you get a quicker answer. And we're not really talking about this in AI world, but we will be one day. This stuff costs a lot, these tokens to run each search. And I'll just give you an example. These numbers won't be right, but directionally they'll be right. We were playing around with ChatGPT and searched a bunch of documents, and it cost us 12,000 tokens.
Yeah.
And then we ran the same search through Collide with our architecture, and it cost 250 tokens because it was
not searching everything in
exactly.
the universe.
It was limiting the scope to certain things. And within the RAG, you can actually build a portion of the search and answer to happen before you actually ask the foundational model the question. And so
I would imagine with a RAG setup, it also prevents hallucinations, right?
yes.
I would assume you're telling the RAG, hey, if there's not an answer, the answer is no.
Correct. And that's interesting because when ChatGPT came out, I mean, I went from Google is the greatest website ever to Google sucks.
Knows nothing.
This is great. I've got an answer, but it was a bit of a black box. So what you can do with a RAG is kind of twofold. One, you can turn the hallucinations off and think the way you think about it is a heat index from 1 to 10. 1 is unless you know the exact answer, please say, I don't know. And then the second thing a RAG does, because it's retrieving the information, it links to the source.
Okay.
So it'll say, you'll ask, what about this? What's the pressure on the 57th stage of this frac? Well, it was XYZ pressure. By the way, here's the page in the frac report I'm pulling that from.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're pulling, you said you have 10 applications that you're doing right now for different companies. Are you keeping them as separate instances so it's only pulling from their company's data?
Exactly. So I'll give you an example. Kraken, what they're using Collide for is to manage their marketing contracts. They're a large producer up in the Bakken.
Yep.
I don't even know what their production is. I'm kind of guessing 150,000, 200,000 barrels a day. Big company. And they have, I believe, 45 different marketing agreements. And the way the fellow would handle marketing contracts is literally a long conference room table. He'd open every marketing agreement to Exhibit A.
Yeah.
And that's the dedicated acreage. So he would get the drill schedule and he'd go, this location, which contract is it dedicated to? And
we find the polygon that matches.
There it is. Boom. And then he'd dig into the contract and he'd go, well, what's my rate? That's a good rate. I'm fine. Or he'd go, that's my rate. That's not a good rate. Or we're going to have to spend CapEx on it. I want an exception letter. So Collide now automates all that for him. So he's literally sitting there at the screen going, this location, what contract, what's my rate, generate the exception letter if it doesn't work. I think what he's going to do now, because we've kind of created a bit of a monster there. Good dude, and I love clients that'll challenge us. Now what he wants to do is he wants to take the drilling schedule for 2 years, go hit the Aries database, pull out the production, build the production forecast, and then assign it to each one of the 45 marketing contracts. So he can walk into whoever, Kender, midstream company XYZ, here are the volumes I'm delivering to your system. Can you take them? Oh, you can't? Well, I need to know that,
Yeah.
Or if I guarantee those, will you knock $1 off a barrel?
Yeah.
Will you knock 50 cents an M off? It's a pretty powerful tool for him to negotiate with.
Absolutely. I mean, it sounds like it could get sophisticated enough that it could help him with his nominations too.
It's probably going to get there as well, or certainly talk to the software he uses to do that.
Yeah.
So that's exactly right. And so I think one of the things we're seeing, if you think about AI, first thing you got to do is you got to get your data in order. You cannot deploy AI into a banker's box. So it's got to be.
Is that the big problem with working with oil and gas companies?
It's a lot of one. So you've got to digitize your data. And, most of our data lives in PDFs, CSVs. And so you got to digitize it. And then what we do and kind of our magic, our special sauce is we're running it through data pipelines. So we are taking that data, we're chunking it, we're embedding it, we're slapping metadata on it and getting it into a vectorized database. And once it's there, the first thing you get, which is just really cool but hard to quantify a value to, is you can just search it really quickly.
Yeah.
No more, I knew this fact, it's in WellView, was that in an email, whatever. No, you can go search it. And so that's cool. But then when you get those building blocks in and you get that data in a good spot, you can start automating workflows. So another use case we've built that a couple of clients are using is we've automated the W-10 and G-10 filings. So how these things work. Railroad Commission sends you a letter, says, hey, these wells, and they ask for things like well tests, production data, some pressure data sometimes, whatever. Yeah. And engineers and engineering techs basically have to go copy and paste out of whatever their production software is or wherever they keep things. And we've got one client, I think, that's documented, they're spending 250 hours a year doing this. So think 12, 13% of an engineer's time. Another client, similar type number of doing it. Well, we've totally automated the whole thing, and it's so cool. This can happen without a human being involved. We have probably 5 buttons you have to push in the process because that's what the client wanted.
Yeah.
And we're still at the trust but verify type thing. So literally the letter comes into Collide. It gets read by Collide. It pulls out the wells they're asking about. It goes into the various databases, grabs the information, populates the W-10 form, and pops it up on the screen. You can edit the W-10 if you want.
Yeah.
Bing, hit print, sign it, and send it back in. And
I
so
mean, it's
really
like basically
cool.
having another person, right? Who's, hey, I'm going to do all this, then I'm going to submit it to you to confirm before we send it out.
No, that's exactly right. One of the things we talk about around here is we want engineers to enjoy their job again and just the stuff they hate.
Yeah.
Copying and pasting, because reporting is not value added. It's necessary. I'm not disputing that. The Railroad Commission has the right to the information. It's just not value add. You're not making any money there. Production's not going up. And so being able to automate that functionality that's today's AI. And then what's really cool is in the future, it was interesting. We had a meeting this week, and this is the way the client phrased it. And so I really like this. I'm going to steal it. Sorry if but he was talking about, Chuck, what you're doing right there, automating workflows, are singles and doubles. And he goes, I think that's really cool. Don't get me wrong. You're going to save money. You're going to make my CFO happy. But I think the true promise of AI is pattern recognition to where I can get doubles, triples, and a home run. Can you find me stuff? And we had a very thoughtful conversation about that. And I've had one proof of concept discussion with an old crusty geologist who said, Chuck, I have 15,000 logs that I've got digitized. And I have figured out that if I see this pattern on a log combined with this production profile, I know they've messed up the fracs and I know what the solution is. But I can't just sit there all day looking for those logs. And then when I find one of those logs, I have to go find the production profile for them. I'm like, that's perfect application for AI. AI, I mean, the state of AI today is it does correlation very well.
Okay.
I don't know that it does causation. You're still the subject matter expert. You're going to have to say, did that matter? But in terms of just, what do you want me to find? These patterns? Boom, I found all of them.
Yeah,
what do you want me
show
to
me
do?
the data and I'll interpret it, but I need somebody to show me the data.
Yes, and you want that production profile associated with those? Bing, I did that. You got to go say what that means. But it was interesting. I was in a presentation, and a geophysicist asked a really thoughtful question. She goes, okay, Chuck, you're telling me the state of AI today is I'm the subject matter expert. It's not replacing me. You're getting me my answers faster so that I can make better decisions quicker. I go, yes. And she goes, but you're also telling me that if I connect all this disparate data, I identify correlations that I, the subject matter expert, didn't even know existed. She goes, how do I wrap my head around that? And you're a really good lawyer, so you don't ever ask a question unless you know the answer.
I mean, I try not to.
Same is true with software. I'm an idiot. I'm like, well, let's just try. So I've got a room.
Let's see what happens.
I've got a room of 15 people. I'm like, let's just try this. So I go, how would you compare and contrast the wells in this database? And I was like, let's see what happens. She's like, have you ever done that before? I'm like, no, let's see. And what was cool is it came back and said, well, I'd look at what basin they're in. That made sense. Formation, that made sense. Casing design made sense. Completion recipe, that made sense. And then it came back and it said, I would examine the EURs and the IP30s based on the different vendors that worked on the well.
Yeah, the mix of vendors.
And I was like, I was at Kane 20 years, did 125 early stage assets. We always dug into the completion recipe to figure out why certain wells were working versus others. And then I never thought to actually say, well, is ProFrac better than Halliburton? Should we look at that? And so she kind of went, the geophysicist went, I get what you're saying. That's something I should go investigate, and I'll make a call on that. I tell my kids, I've seen 3 technological changes in my life that were like holy cow type things. One was the internet. The other was the shale revolution. And the third is being AI. And in those previous two, the people that made all the money adopted early and figured it out.
Yep.
As opposed to being fast followers, So I tell my kids, use AI every day because you need to figure it out.
Yeah.
So
you need to be the one that they call when they need the correct prompt.
Exactly.
Well, so you mentioned something. You said, this could save about 12 to 13% of an engineer's job. We also mentioned
one workflow.
Automating
that one workflow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, we mentioned the concern that people often kind of bandy about AI is going to take my job. How do you respond to that?
It's a tool. Did Excel take your job? No. If you learn to use Excel, you got a better job.
Yeah.
So I always say time and time again, AI is not going to take your job. Somebody that knows how to do your job with AI is going to take your job. And I think that's how you should be thinking about it. It's a tool for efficiency. It allows you to spend time on higher value stuff. I mean, you don't need to negotiate a confidentiality agreement or an NDA ever again. Let AI go do that. You need to figure out, in this one sale and purchase agreement we're working on, they're pushing some title risk back to me. What do I tell my client? I mean, that's where you need to be spending your time thinking about it. And
well, it's also, it might help lessen the cognitive load for some of these jobs because, as you know, when you're switching to different sides of your brain, that's actually very hard for you to do. And so if you have to switch into reporting mode, all of a sudden, all that creativity, gone.
Right.
And it's going to take you a long time to get back to it, but that report still has to go out.
Well, and the other thing AI does too is it upskills people. So I don't know that I can make this statement yet, but I think we're going to be able to. So what the hell? I think the cracking in the marketing agreements, I think a more junior person is going to be able to handle the marketing agreements because of the software. I think we'll be able to make that statement or prove that. The one thing I do want to point out, though, that worries me, this scares me, is like the greatest thing that ever happened to me in my career, and I didn't realize it, is I went to work for Stephens, the Little Rock, Arkansas bank, and I was in the regional office, Houston, small office.
Okay.
We had no real infrastructure, and we kind of just did whatever deal walked in. So about half of what we did was energy, but we did work for the Pappas family on restaurants. We did a pea in the pod retailer IPO. We did contract electronic manufacturing with Benchmark.
Yeah.
Electronics, and so every one of those deals I worked on, I had to build a model from scratch. We were not the energy group at Jefferies that sold, $1 billion worth of properties every 20 minutes and, off the shelf type models we could just fill stuff in. And so I had to build them from scratch, which was incredibly frustrating, time consuming, but really taught me a lot.
Yeah.
I had to understand, when you build a model, you're having to understand the drivers of, oh crap, payables really matter. If you can stretch payables, you can help. And so I feel like business turns on the old crusty guy or crusty gal that has spent their career doing a lot of the grunt work to build up that knowledge so that they have to make 10 decisions a year and be right 8 times, but that's all they do. They don't generate any work. I don't know how we create those people in a world with AI. If we're automating so much of the basic workflow, how do you learn?
Where you have to ensure that people have the basic understanding, before they start using the model or the workflow or what have you.
Because automating W-10s and G-10 filings is mundane work. It's copying and pasting, but you learn a lot. Because one of the things the Railroad Commission says is, hey, if a well test is more than a previous well test, we want to know about that.
Yeah.
Right? Is it a workover? Does it have to do with allowables? And you do figure that out doing the mundane work. I had this discussion with a very prominent CIO of a large oil and gas company, and he said, there is somebody on my board, who I won't name, who we've had this exact discussion with, because he goes, I bring this up. I bring this up to HR. How are we training the next level of experts? And he said there is one train of thought of somebody saying, don't care. Take all the tribal knowledge with you. I don't care. I want young people. I want AI. We'll burn it to the ground. We'll just start over. And I'm not sure I'm there because
you're the old crusty guy?
I'm the old crusty guy now. Yeah, exactly. Don't need to get rid of me yet. But no, it's interesting to think through because that's going to be a push-pull dynamic that we're going to have to navigate through this AI world.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the last thing we want is to create a second wave of knowledge gap. I mean, we have that in the energy industry anyway, between, the 40-somethings and the 60-somethings. Last thing we need is another one between the 20-somethings and the 40-somethings.
Right. Well, it's interesting because I make kind of the, being a podcaster as well as an AI salesman now. I just
Galactic Viceroy.
Galactic Viceroy. I make bombastic statements just because,
Yeah.
So I've been running around going that I believe 80% of the tribal knowledge in oil and gas is never put on a sheet of paper. That cannot be gleaned from a WellView file. It cannot be gleaned from an Aries run. It's in somebody's head. It's discussed in a meeting. Mm-hmm. And I said this Tuesday, very large publicly traded company, and the head of operations goes, dude, it's 95%. And I was like, wow, that's cool. I'll start saying that.
I thought I was exaggerating.
I thought I was exaggerating for effect. But so one of the interesting things with AI, and I want to be careful how I say this and what I'm implying in this, the cost of storage today is literally zero. I mean, hard drives cost nothing. I know everybody's cloud bill is too high, so I'm not suggesting that, but just pure storage. And now AI has driven the ability to go through all that data to almost zero, right? I mean, you can search really quickly. And so I think capturing that tribal knowledge with things like voice to text, because that is so good these days, that's going to be a big, huge game changer. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you could capture all the knowledge that the pumpers have, mm-hmm. I mean, I bet if we do this podcast in a year, I'm telling you about Pumper Bot, where they're sitting there talking to their iPhone. It's like, hey, what about the Rockets trade for Durant? Oh, yeah, that was great. And, oh, you don't feel good today? Let's listen to some Van Halen then, But when you start getting near the well, it's like, hey, I noticed you changed the chemical program. Why'd you do that? What issues do you have with this well? And just capturing all that data to pass on to the next people, as well as having that data queryable at the home office, so the production engineer can go, holy cow, I'm picking up, this, and this from all these wells,
Yeah.
So
3 different pumpers have reported in that they're, having these issues. And
exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's a date. We'll do this again in 1 year.
Cool. Anytime.
All right. Final thoughts.
What I would actually love to hear is, how do you think AI is changing legal stuff? Because it feels like copying and pasting and more mundane stuff, a lot of third-year associates at law firms did that.
Yeah.
So what are you seeing?
Well, so I was actually having this conversation as well yesterday. So everybody thinks when they think of legal AI that exactly what you said, you're going to generate easy form documents, you're going to copy and paste, et cetera, et cetera. But what we have found in our investigation of the tools out there is they're not doing that. What they're really doing is they're making you better. They're asking you, hey, have you thought of this? Yeah. And so, you have this is what I normally do, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just making some suggestions there at the end saying, you know what, this looks great, right? But you may want to consider X, Y, and Z. It's almost becoming a thought partner with you in some of these arenas. And then it can tell you, if you like that, here's some suggested language. Any lawyer worth their salt is not just going to take that language and put it in their document. They're going to make it make sense for what they're doing. But it really is helping us get better.
Well, I like that because that ought to be something we're doing within Collide is, have you thought about changing the chemicals out on this? We notice, particularly when benchmarking stuff, we notice, the 5 offset operators are doing X, Y, and Z. Have you considered that?
Exactly.
I like that. That's an interesting thing. Cool.
All right. Well, thanks for your time today, Chuck. This was great.
Absolutely.
All right, man. I will see you next year.
Cool. Thanks, Rachel.
Bye-bye. If you'd like to be a guest on our podcast, please email us at podcast@rreecelaw.com.
The information and material in this episode is general information about our practice and firm and is for educational and informational purposes only. This information does not offer specific legal advice, and the use of this information does not create an attorney-client relationship with RRNA or any of its attorneys. The information in this episode, or any episode of An Ounce of Prevention, should not be considered legal advice, and persons should not act upon this information without first engaging professional legal counsel.
Thank you for listening to An Ounce of Prevention, presented by R. Reece & Associates. If you found this episode informative, subscribe to, rate, and review our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to stay up to date with future episodes, case law updates, and breaking news. If you have any questions or are interested in learning what RRNA's outsourced legal department can do for your company, reach out to us at podcast@rreecelaw.com. That's podcast@rreecelaw.com. Follow us on LinkedIn or call 832-831-2289.